Welcome back. The crucial midterm polls are now closed in the United States. What is at stake? The control over the Senate and House of Representatives. This election will determine control over the Congress. The party which has a majority can decide what legislation the Congress will consider. 36 governors and thousands of state legislators are also on the ballot. Some key takeaways so far: Republicans on course to win a majority in the House of Representatives, though we will have to see how big a majority it actually is. The control over the Senate is still up for grabs. Democrats have, however, performed better than expected. They look set to win the crucial seat of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman defeating the Republican candidate. Florida has re-elected Republican Ron DeSantis, which could provide him a springboard to launch a 2024 election campaign. Not on the ballot, but very much involved is Donald Trump, who is backing more than a dozen Republican candidates and has promised to make a big announcement on the 15th of November. Depending on how candidates backed by him perform, Trump may announce his bid for 2024 elections. Former diplomats Ambassador KC Singh and Ambassador Vishnu Prakash now join us on Newscenter. Thank you very much for joining us. Ambassador KC Singh, Democrats performing better than expected. Do you think the last few months of campaigning and a slew of legislations announced by Joe Biden have really helped the Democrats turn the tide in some of the key battlegrounds?
Well, as you know, the turning point was the June judgment of the Supreme Court, which barred abortion for women. So in the middle of the year, it appeared the Democrats were safe because the women's votes were turning against the Republicans. But in the last 3-4 months, the economy, inflation, higher energy prices, etc., they began to play on the minds of people. Even though unemployment was not that high and employment rates were okay, largely the polls started indicating a change of mood. But that is not what has happened. It's not the kind of route which the Republicans were hoping for. So I think what is important is not so much the numbers, because Senate may still remain with the Democrats. In Georgia, they're leading, but there may be a runoff. At the moment, it's 48-48. There are 4 seats up in the air: Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Nevada. Now, however that tosses, that doesn't matter. I think important thing is that Trump is not looking so good. Yeah. His rival DeSantis, whom he opposed in Florida, has got re-elected as the governor. And many of the candidates that he sponsored are not really doing that great. And already there's a murmur. It's going around amongst Republican circles that they have to distance themselves from Trump. So I don't know what he's going to do on the 15th, because he's not looking that good. And particularly if Senate remains with the Democrats and the gap in the Congress, in the House itself, is not more than 20 at the moment and may be diminished, then I think the Democrats may just get away with it, because normally midterms turn against the president, the party to which the president belongs. So it is not strange that this was happening. But I think Democrats, by escaping with a very narrow thing, it's more of a scrape and more of a win, even though they may not win.
Right. So those are some interesting points. And like you said, very important for the Republicans. Donald Trump had almost announced his bid for the 2024 election, but the outcome of the election so far has not gone in his favor. Let me get in Ambassador Vishnu Prakash at this point. Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, do you think after the result of this election, the Republican candidates, the Republican leaders may actually nudge Donald Trump not to make any announcement on the 15th of November in Mar-a-Lago?
Greetings. That is, if Donald Trump is a person who can be nudged by anybody. He's his own man, and he's literally a one-man army. But there is no doubt about it that this is a setback for Donald Trump, and for it will certainly give encouragement to other Republicans who are not very comfortable with Donald Trump's style of campaigning, his behavior, and so on. The polity is divided, but the kind of public discourse, the kind of public statements that have been made by Donald Trump, including calling names to Nancy Pelosi, is literally coming to haunt at least a segment of the electorate. And but Trump's reaction would have to be watched, because he's quite capable of shrugging this off and declaring victory. The other thing would be that there were some rumors, some talks that there may not be any primaries for the presidential elections among the Republicans. I think the primaries will happen now or should happen. And for the Democrats, it's a relief because there is a split mandate, but they have put up a better show than expected. They will take heart from the fact that their loss in the House, if the House goes out, they lose the House, it will not be as big, and they are likely to retain the Senate. So the Democratic agenda will be under additional scrutiny, but it will also have a sobering impact on the Republican enthusiasm to rock the boat.
Right. Ron DeSantis, Ambassador KC Singh, there is now speculation that because of the victory in Florida, this may be a springboard for him to launch an election campaign. How would he be as a candidate for the Republicans? How strong are his credentials?
Well, so far, he's seen as the strongest contender. And that is why Trump was attacking him. Indirectly, he's been going after him, even though he's his protege. He's the one who brought him up in Florida. But now, of course, in politics, they're no friends once the race is on. And the fact that Trump was not very complimentary, and despite that, he has won. And he is a Hispanic, so he has the Hispanic vote. And the other thing that's being talked about, that largely all across America, the Hispanics didn't go into the Republican corner. They were not able to garner those votes to the extent that was expected. So they could think in terms of a Hispanic leading their campaign, but then others will come out. But at the moment, I think he seems to be the one who is a front runner. But in America, it's always a long race. It's a whole year in which you can have ups and downs. We don't know if Biden's going to run again. We don't know if he doesn't run, who's the candidate on the Democratic side. But it's given a lease of life to Biden. Otherwise, Biden would have been lame duck if they had lost both the houses by convincing margins. But interesting is the role played by President Barack Obama. He came out late and he came out firing. And for a long time, I think Biden didn't want to be in a shadow, so he was not using him. But eventually, I think when he realized that this is a life and death situation, he brought him in because he brings a degree of charisma, coining of slogans, coining of phrases, which Biden doesn't do because Biden's a very straightforward talking guy. So I think Obama will be given credit for having at least saved, to some extent, the honor of the Democratic Party.
Right. Of course, a lease of life there for Joe Biden, a better than expected result here in the midterm elections. But the impact on decision-making and foreign policy, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, if the Democrats manage to control the Senate and Republicans are only able to win the House of Representatives, a majority there by a thin majority, do you think Biden will be able to continue with his legislative agenda, or there will be a pressure on him to maybe be more aggressive when it comes to issues like immigration, issues such as human rights, or even foreign policy?
Well, those are the issues which are very close to the democratic heart and or the democratic platform. So I think they will continue with that. The foreign policy outlook should more or less remain the same. But what will happen is that since purse strings are controlled by the House, there will be more difficulty. There will be added scrutiny when it comes to requests for funds. For example, there could be some reduction in the funding that is going to Ukraine. But in the scenario that the Democrats control the Senate, I do not see much of a change in the foreign policy agenda of the Democrats. They will have to, and in fact, when in the very beginning at his inaugural address also, President Biden had indicated that he will be looking at the domestic agenda very carefully. I think he will again have to get back to the domestic agenda because the inflation is very high, the imminent recession, there is concern about the law and order, and so on. So I think there'll be a refocus on the domestic agenda.
All right, we've run out of time, but Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, Ambassador KC Singh, thank you very much for joining us on Newscenter, giving us your view on the midterm race and what it really means for the Democrats and the Republicans. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Newscenter. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.